back, everybody. We're episode 13, I believe, and something like that. Getting in pretty deep here into the season, and we just had Rivalry week, which was awesome. Hope you enjoyed that commercial too. By the way, I posted on our page because to me that's one of the funniest commercials, and Herschel Walker is hilarious. So, anyways, very very good week. It was a lot of fun starting on Friday. There's I think 2 games on Thursday evening. I can't remember who played, but
Texas and Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, and Texas Tech beat Texas.
That was a pretty sweet little trick play there, right?
Yeah,
that was very cool.
That was really cool. Very cool
that.
Trick play. Texas Tech ended up winning that game on Thursday night, Turkey Day. I know I was sitting on the couch, couldn't move that night. Had plenty of pie, plenty of beer, and plenty of turkey. So
3 times.
3 times. Twice for me, 3 times for him. So I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving. We know we did. Let's talk a little bit about what happened on Friday. First of all, we'll talk about our Huskers, who we still 100% support and love our Huskers. But
absolutely,
you know this has been the worst season since Bill Callahan's 5-7 season. Not only that, but Tommy's worst game by far. And he's thrown more interceptions than any quarterback in college football this year. So not a good year overall. 4 interceptions in the game.
No touchdowns.
No touchdowns. If you think about it, though, we only lost by 8 points, which to me says how good is Iowa that they can't beat us after we turn the ball over 4 times. I think our defense, I don't think it says anything too much about Iowa, but I think our defense played really well.
Our defense played really well. It's kind of funny because the big question going into the game was, like, what team's going to show up? What Tommy Armstrong is going to show up?
Yep.
Obviously, the good Tommy Armstrong was still eating Thanksgiving dinner or something. But the defense actually showed up. Unfortunately, Nate Gary got kicked out of the game. Otherwise, those 2 long touchdown runs don't happen.
Now, what do you think about that call? The targeting call?
I didn't like it. I know that that's what they're saying is the rule nowadays. But I've seen people are like, "This is football, man." Like,
I've seen worse targeted hits than that.
Yeah.
Not he dove. He had at least one arm out, and he was diving to break up the play.
Yeah.
And he was turning his back as well. So he hit him helmet to helmet. I agree with that. I don't think it should have been targeting. The biggest thing is he was breaking up the play. He's going to break up the ball because if he didn't do that, if he didn't hit him, the guy catches the ball for a first down. He's going to make a football play. He wasn't just targeting a defensive receiver.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
where I'm like,
I know.
I get the 15-yarder.
The penalty's fine.
Targeting, I disagree. I think that was a big blow to Nebraska, and I think that really hurt us the rest of the game. And you could tell a couple of their long runs they had.
Yeah.
Gary would be the one to catch them. Gary has been outstanding this year.
They ran the same play for 2 touchdowns. One was like 25 yards, and the other one was 68 yards or whatever. And that hole would have been right where Gary is. Whether, he makes the tackle 10, 15, 20 yards downfield, or slows it up enough for somebody else to make the tackle, or not let somebody run 68 yards.
Yeah. So you can catch them.
And Jason, I'm happy for you. You guys are 12-0, and you guys are playing in the Big Ten Championship. You guys deserve that and everything. But C.J. Beathard, I just did not think. I know they didn't throw the ball much, but wasn't impressed really.
No.
I think it was more of a lack of. They did what they always do, and that's they don't turn the ball over. They chip away at you, and they play good defense.
And they take opportunities when they have them. They had opportunities, and they took advantage of it. And we didn't. We had opportunities as well, and we didn't take advantage of it. Tommy's 4 interceptions were, and Jason even said, you got to give it up for the defense. I'm not giving any credit to their defense on the interceptions because he threw it right to them.
I mean, it could have been 6 or 7 interceptions.
Yeah,
he hit a couple guys in the hands or the numbers.
It's not like he threw it and the Iowa defenders made a great play. He threw it right to the guys, which. Yeah, good thing they caught it because you see a lot of times defenders don't catch it. They don't see it coming, or they go to catch it and they're getting excited and they drop it. So I'll give a little credit. That's why
they play defense and not receiver.
I'll give a little credit to the defense.
No, I will. I will.
I really wish we would have ran the ball more. I know 46 times for Henry this week, and he had 271 yards. I mean, Amani Cross, he's not going to run for 200-plus yards. He's not going to run for 150-plus more likely, but he can. And Janovich
didn't get carried enough. And when Newby... He was great when, we had Amir and we had, and Cross, and he would come in as like one of those kind of slot receivers to do like an end around, that type of play. But when we were putting him in the backfield, handing him the ball, and he goes this way, this way, this way for a yard.
Yeah.
Every time. 2 yards.
He can't find the hole. Amani Cross started the game.
Yeah, he did. And I thought he should have played the whole
And then
game.
it seemed like Newby was the starter after that. It just they couldn't decide who to play, which has been a problem all year for Nebraska. Which it sucks that we lost by 8 points to an undefeated Iowa. I really thought we had at least a 5 to 7 point advantage in that game, and without those interceptions, the game could have been decided by a field goal. You just never know.
Yeah, I think we probably did have a chance to win the game if Tommy doesn't throw 4 interceptions.
But he did.
But he did.
Congratulations to Iowa.
That'll be a fun game. That's a play-in game. Michigan State and.
Well, we'll talk about that later. I got my own opinions on that game.
But we'll see.
But Nebraska, tough season this year.
They're saying there's going to be quite a few teams. There could be quite a few 5 and 7 teams that make bowl games. So
Kenny Bell chipped in on that. You guys don't remember Kenny Bell, receiver from Nebraska last year, playing. Well, he's not playing.
Plays for the Bucks, but he was out. He got hurt and was out for the season.
So he said it'd be a shame to invite a 5 and 7 or a team without 6 wins. Not ashamed to invite Nebraska, but a team without 6 wins to a bowl game. He said wouldn't be a smart idea. Doesn't think it should be done. The problem is.
There's 80 teams now. It has to be.
Yeah, expanded from like 34 bowls to 40, so you're going to have to invite some 5 and 7 teams. But then he goes, but if you're going to invite a 5 and 7 team, you might as well invite Nebraska because fans from Nebraska, they travel to Scandinavia if you schedule a game there. And that's totally true. You will get the fans, and that's loyalty to a team no matter how bad they are.
I saw a deal where it had like Nebraska as the number 1 5 and 7 team to go to a bowl game. Yeah. And there's still some games left to be played this week.
Yeah.
Like Big 12 teams that have their final game that are 5 and 6. So I don't know. Maybe there won't be as many openings.
Yeah.
But I do think I see them getting in there, and I don't see why it wouldn't be a bad thing because you have another month of practices, or at least a few weeks of practices under the staff. Get some of the young guys learning the system a little bit more. Yeah. Get everybody playing together a little bit more and practicing and that kind of thing. So I going to a bowl game, in my opinion, is never a bad thing.
I think we go, and I think it'll be interesting to see who we play. It'll be interesting to see how we do in the bowl game, how much preparedness we have against the team we're going to play, and
hopefully it's not like a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday at 2:00 in the afternoon games that no one can watch. But
I can watch. I'll go in my break room with my laptop. Anyways, let's talk about some of the other games. So we had TCU versus Baylor. That went to double OT, and that game looked miserable.
Oh, it was horrible.
Swamp land, man. There's so much rain. And Texas has been getting a ton of rain, so I wasn't too surprised by that. But, man, that was a pretty good game by both teams.
I didn't know Boykin was going to be back, I guess.
I didn't either.
So,
by the way, I picked TCU to win. You picked Baylor, so I get that game.
That's garbage because I didn't know he was going to be back.
I didn't know he was either, but it was a good game. TCU and Baylor both played well. It wasn't a shootout like it was that year, or last year. Mm-hmm. But you can credit that to the bad weather.
The weather.
So TCU takes Baylor, takes away their Big 12 championship.
Any playoff aspirations.
They only would have got the Big 12 championship if they beat Texas and if Oklahoma lost, which Oklahoma didn't anyway. So Oklahoma wraps up the Big 12 championship by kicking the crap out of Oklahoma State. That game was an embarrassment.
It was bad.
To an Oklahoma State who was undefeated before they lost to Baylor, and they still had a chance to win. If they would have beat Oklahoma, they won the Big 12 championship.
And could have potentially even been a playoff team. I know.
Maybe.
That actually would have. I said it last week. I said that would have. The Big 12 probably would have been out if Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma.
So. Well, unless Baylor.
But then I guess. Yeah,
but either way, so Oklahoma State. One thing I noticed about them is, I all year, I was like, oh, Oklahoma State. They're the only team in the Big 12 that has a good defense, and that's what I thought all the way up. Even when they lost to Baylor, I still thought that they were okay on defense, and probably the best in the Big 12. But Oklahoma decided, hey, your defense sucks, and we're going to challenge you,
and we're going to show that you.
Two things I saw. Not only were they terrible in pass coverage. But 2, anytime the guys got the ball and they ran up to them, they would juke them as if they're the one running the ball instead of just attacking the guy with the ball.
Yeah.
And so there's one play where the guy caught the ball 3 or 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And the guy at the line of scrimmage stopped and broke down and just kind of started shuffling his feet. And it's like, you had the advantage. The guy was stopped. You're running, and you stop your momentum. All you had to do was go tackle the guy.
And now he can pick and choose which way he's going to go and run right around.
Exactly, and that's what he did. And he gets first down. I saw that a couple times in the game. But OU handles Oklahoma State. I was a little shocked by how well they handled them because Oklahoma State's not a bad team, but they looked like a 5 and 7 team.
I was a little shocked at least by the 35-point win, but at that point in time, Oklahoma didn't know. Those guys don't know what's going on in these other games that we're watching.
Yep.
So they're playing for a playoff spot. They got to win the Big 12. That would have won them the Big 12 championship, and they needed to do it convincingly, which they did. And a couple other things happened behind them that helped anyway. But they were in there to win as big as they could.
Yep.
So
OU wins big over Oklahoma State. Stanford. Let's talk about Stanford Notre Dame last, because that was the game last night. That was a lot of fun to watch. Florida State at Florida. They go to the Swamp against the Gators, who have struggled in a lot of games this year to score points. Their offense is really pathetic, but their defense isn't that bad.
They're horrible.
Now, we both said Florida State's going to win that game. We were pretty confident, and they went in there and they ended up winning the game, and Florida had 2 points. So their offense didn't even
27-2.
Their offense didn't even score. And you're looking at an SEC championship team here going up against Alabama.
In the SEC championship. There's no, let's take it easy, we got Alabama next week.
They're going to get their shit rocked.
I texted you last night and said they're going to lose by 40 points.
And I think you said it's 17.5 point favorite.
17.5 spread.
I think it's going to be more than that. I wouldn't be shocked.
For sure.
I really hope Florida wins.
That would be awesome if Florida won.
If Florida wins,
that would take the SEC out for sure.
SEC's done, which would be great. It's not going to happen, but
that would slide either a Stanford as a Pac-12 champion, or maybe even an Ohio State.
Maybe even two Big Ten teams.
Unfortunately.
We'll see what happens. So Florida State dominates Florida at Florida, which I don't think anyone was too shocked by that. Florida State had a pretty good, it had a decent season, even though they were ranked 6th at the beginning of the year. A lot of people thought they were going to be really good with Golson, and he proved what he did with Notre Dame. He's no better at a different school.
Well, and I don't even think he played.
I think he was supposed to, but I have no idea. If he did, their backup quarterback
sure
too.
He did.
I didn't watch any of that game. I just know that Florida sucks. Alabama, they played Auburn at Auburn.
It was a decent game
and
for
I
a while.
posted a couple times on our Facebook wall about how I think, and we talked about this all year. We think the SEC gets a lot of favoritism, but not just the SEC. I think Alabama does too. One big thing that just drove me nuts during that game is when Saban ran on the field because Auburn had 12 men on D.
They did.
The rest didn't throw a flag. They didn't throw a flag yet. There was no penalty called. He runs on the field yelling at the ref. He gets a flag for a sideline warning.
They gave him a warning.
And then, 10 seconds later, they come back on the field and announce too many men on the field for Auburn and give them a penalty.
Which then turns around to
a touchdown.
2 plays later, they throw a long touchdown pass.
So, to me, that just kind of pissed me off because I don't think you should be given a warning as a coach. You know you're not supposed to run on the field. Don't run on the field.
You can't run on the field.
But then you look at what happened with Auburn.
You should get flagged right away.
Now, I know Muschamp, when he came on the field for Auburn, he was yelling and his face was about to explode.
He probably was saying, he was probably saying a lot of different things. I get it. But it literally was the next series for Auburn. They get a flag and get a 15-yard penalty for a coach running onto the field.
Well, what was the 15-yarder they got? What was the personal foul they got? Oh, it was late hit out of bounds.
Yeah.
Late hit out of bounds, which it was. The guy dove after the guy was out of bounds. That was stupid. But then Muschamp comes on because he's not happy about the play calling, and right away he gets a 15-yard penalty. He didn't get a warning. Now, I understand things get said on the sidelines that shouldn't, but that happened in the Iowa-Nebraska game too, where Ferentz got a 15-yarder as well on the sideline without a warning.
That's true. And
I don't know what happened there.
I think it was. I heard about what, or they mentioned what he was mad about, and it was something that Nebraska should have been penalized. Ethan Carter caught a pass, a decent pass.
Yeah.
And he was lined up as he shouldn't have been an eligible receiver.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
And he was wide open and got a long place, and it was something that probably should have been called.
Okay, so here's the deal though. My thing is, I even posted on our page. Are they just trying to secure the slot for Alabama in that game? To me, it's just one of those things where you can't call a sideline warning on one coach and then give a 15-yarder on another coach. Because I thought Muschamp was going to come out and just strangle that referee later, 2 plays later.
Oh, he was still doing it.
After they scored a touchdown.
Actually,
he was going to kill him.
Gus Malzahn came over and grabbed him and was like, no.
Well, his whole assistants,
assistants
and then Gus and the ref were talking hey, calm his shit down because he was heated. But I don't blame him. I mean, he gets a 15-yarder, and Alabama didn't. Nick Saban runs on the field. I don't know. We hate Alabama, and we really hope they lose. I'm not drinking the milk.
I don't.
Henry ran for 46 times. They had 70 plays in the game, Jimmy. 70. And 46 of them were rushes.
With him.
And he had 271 yards rushing and 1 TD. Okay, you're talking a Heisman candidate. If you run for 271 yards, you should have at least 4 TDs. At least.
You would think.
But they only scored 28 points.
They scored 29 points.
29-13.
Which was only 2 touchdowns, I think.
So, I mean, how impressive was Alabama? Not that impressive. They're very beatable, but not by Auburn and not by Florida. Florida's going to lose to them as well. So, anyways, that's all I'm going to say about that game because I hate Alabama. Then we have Clemson played South Carolina. Nobody expected that game to be that close.
No.
What was it, 38-32?
37-32.
37-32, whatever it was close. 5-6 point game. Very close game. Gamecocks had probably their best game of the season.
And that's probably the best rivalry game, so I don't blame them. But after losing to the Citadel, I thought that Clemson might beat them by like 65 points.
But here's the thing: even with that game, you look at how Clemson didn't even struggle. I mean, that was just a hard-fought game. And that's what you get in these kind of games.
Deshaun Watson, I mean, he was a stud. I mean,
he 20 for 27 for almost 280 yards. He had a TD passing, and they had 3 rushing TDs for 115 yards rushing, 114 yards. So he had a hell of a game. You're talking Heisman candidate performance. He's number 1 right now in my mind. He by far had the best game out of any candidates this weekend. When you look at stats,
I agree with that, and I don't know.
You can be shocked. You can be awed and excited about Henry's 270 yards. But he only had 1 TD, but he won them that game because of his 270 yards.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how they won the game. But I'm still not as impressed as I am with Watson.
Agreed. And with Watson, I mean, he was there for 4 of their touchdowns. I mean, he won them the game too.
Yeah.
I know McCaffrey, which we'll get to in a second. Before we would talk about 2 other games I want to talk about briefly. 2 games that were both kind of blowouts. 2 Big Ten games we didn't talk about. Ohio State beats up on Michigan. I thought that game would be a lot closer. I thought Michigan would win the game.
When even at halftime, it was still fairly close.
Yeah, within reason.
Yeah.
Michigan they kind of laid an egg. They didn't play like that all season. They had 2 losses. One was to Michigan State on the last play, and to Utah in a close game on the first night of college football. I don't know. I guess Ohio State was frustrated and mad about their week before. Elliott tore it up.
Well, here's to confirm why Elliott is not in our conversation for a Heisman, nor anyone else's conversation for a Heisman right now, is because the way he threw his coaches and his team under the bus after their loss to Michigan State.
And they still could throw him up in there. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I think everyone, when you talk about the Heisman, you're not just talking about a candidate that is good on the field. We're talking about somebody who exemplifies a good sportsman, somebody who's going to go out there and stand up for his team, stand up for his coaches.
Jameis Winston?
I'm just kidding. We don't need to talk about that right now. Don't get me started. But, I mean, when you talk about the Heisman, when you're looking at the best player in college football, all-around best player, and right now, Ezekiel Elliott, that one game, even though it was one bad game, to me it takes him out. Deshaun Watson really hasn't had a bad game this year. Look at Fournette. Even after that one loss to Alabama, even if he came out and had a next good 2-3 games after that,
which he
season,
didn't, but
he had a good game yesterday, so-so.
Yeah.
But even with the 2 previous games, if he played really well after Alabama, I still don't think he would have been in the running because of Watson and Henry and McCaffrey.
Yeah. Well, and Fournette could have saved Les's job yesterday.
He could have.
He could have been the one to save his job.
He could have. But yeah, so
Ohio State
destroyed Michigan.
Rolled up Michigan. The other one was Michigan State locking up the East.
Yep. And Michigan State,
they killed Penn State.
They destroyed Penn State.
Yeah. Connor Cook was back, and I was kind of surprised because they beat Ohio State with that and torched up.
But here's the thing: you know you can run some plays with those backup quarterbacks because they can run. Not only could they run, but they could pass. So you have something there that most teams don't have, is 2 backup quarterbacks that are still healthy along with the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
All right.
Michigan State, I think we'll talk about it in a second, but Michigan State played really well.
So let's talk about the game of the week, probably the game of the season.
Notre Dame Stanford. Notre Dame Stanford going to Stanford, playing the Cardinal, which the Cardinal refers to the vivid red color, not the mascot, which is a tree. Which
I saw you going back and forth.
Which is pretty funny because
I've always wondered.
Yeah, a lot of people probably wonder why is their mascot not a cardinal? Well, it refers to the color, which is their color red for Stanford. So, anyways, so Stanford and Notre Dame play,
which is obviously it's a big rivalry game. Every other year, since Stanford and USC don't like to play in cold weather, they play Notre Dame either in the middle of the season, on the road, or at home at the end of the season.
Yep.
But
hell of a game.
Quite possibly, you said it, quite possibly the best game of the season in college football.
Yep.
And credit Notre Dame for going on the road with a third string, with, 10 starters out.
It's not a third string anymore. He started all season.
I know, he is. And he's good. He probably could have started on a lot of other college football teams.
Yeah.
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
But just a great game. I mean, at no point in time in that game did I think either team was out or that either team was like
the game was never over.
Had enough of a stretch in front of them that it was like, oh yeah, they got this in the bag.
So Stanford comes down. They score on the first drive.
Yeah, it was a beautiful drive.
I was watching it with my brother, another Notre Dame fan, like, oh shit, they scored right away. Maybe this isn't going to be a pretty game. And then Notre Dame returns the kickoff right after that. So right then you're thinking, all right, wow, this game is going to be a good one. You know right away this is going to be a great matchup. You got a two-loss Pac-12 team in Stanford that really has played well all year, and they've shown that they're a top contender. And then you got Notre Dame, whose their one loss was to Clemson, who's the number one team in the country.
In a monsoon.
In the monsoon, yeah, and in bad weather. So you can't discredit Notre Dame. They had a hell of a season, but you knew they had to win that game, and they had to win big to have a chance to get in the playoff.
Agreed.
And I think even if they won the game, it was going to be tough to get in because they weren't going to get in over a Big Ten champ, and I don't think they would have jumped. Possibly they would have. If Stanford won the Pac-12 championship and Notre Dame won that game, Notre Dame could have jumped in over Oklahoma.
Agreed, but at that point in time, by the time the end of the game hit, Oklahoma was winning pretty big, and it's kind of looking. But, I mean, just a battle back and forth the whole game.
Well, what was crazy is that last play where Kaiser went in for a touchdown, they were reviewing it, seeing if his knee hit, and there was 30 seconds left on the clock.
And I said he was short.
I thought he was short as well.
I mean, maybe, obviously there wasn't enough video evidence to overturn it, but it probably would have been in Notre Dame's favor.
You're talking about another maybe 3 to 5 seconds off the clock.
They would have called a timeout, but that would have taken one of Stanford's timeouts away.
Yeah.
And which maybe they did call a timeout after that anyway. They did because they had to stop the clock.
They had to. So,
but either way, it would have been another play. And
but they had great throw down the middle of the field to the tight end.
Yeah.
Got the ball. Not only did he catch it, but he extended the play by 2 or 3 yards.
When he jumped.
When he jumped, so that helped him out a lot. And then just right in the middle of the field, so they kick it right down the middle, 45-yarder, and they win the game. I mean, just that's one of those rivalry games that's going to go down in history as one of the best, I think, between these two teams.
They were showing during the game how the last however many games against those two teams have gone. Within 3 to 7 points every game, coming down to the last possession. The year Notre Dame went to the national championship, they made like 4 goal line stops.
Yeah, and it was a game of
just crazy.
Grit and
that's exactly how those games usually go. And sorry for you Notre Dame fans, because we don't like to hate unless it's Alabama. But heck of a season. You got to give credit where credit's due. That's what we keep saying.
And like Pooty said, Pooty, you're like, hey, you can't forget that Notre Dame was on their third string quarterback. Well aware, they're on their second or third string running back with Process being out.
He's fast though, man. That long touchdown run he had was awesome.
Watch out for Notre Dame next year. Now next year, if Notre Dame's in the top 10, this is the first year I'm not going to bitch about it. Because I think they deserve it.
For sure. And
with Procise, Kaiser, Adams,
the only problem they're going to have for next year is, are they going to go with Malik Zaire or are you going to go with Kaiser?
That's tough.
They might do a double quarterback system
You run into problems with that. Ohio State did.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
They want to go out drinking and get in trouble.
I saw the video footage of that too.
Yeah,
before we get pulled over. It's kind of funny.
All right, so a lot of good games this last weekend. This is why we love college football. This weekend, I think this year by far is probably one of the best years in college football, minus the Huskers.
Minus the Huskers not being good.
When you're looking at the whole body of work by every team and the divisions, the championships, I think this is one year when you can say up and down. You know, you might have 2 or 3 bad eggs in a conference, but for the most part, every team, these conference games, doesn't matter who you play, they're tough.
I know.
Doesn't matter.
And there really hasn't been a team that's head and shoulders better than anybody. The last couple of years, you know, I know like Oregon lost a game last year, but they were killing everybody.
Yep.
You know, Alabama lost a game last year, but they were beating people up. And
look at your
Florida State was undefeated. They weren't killing teams. And then, you know, Ohio State squeaked in there. But
your top 10 teams, I mean, Alabama has a loss to an Ole Miss who has 3 losses this year. They had a strong finish to the season, but they have a loss to a 3-loss team. Oklahoma's 1 loss was to a 5 and 7 or 4 and 8.
Is it?
Yeah, 4 and 8. Texas, they might be. I don't know. Either way, they're not a good team. They lost to Texas. You have Michigan State who lost to Nebraska. You have Ohio State who lost to Michigan State.
It does kind of feel pretty good when you see that pretty little 1 next to 11 and 1 next to Michigan State. And that
but then you got a 2-loss Stanford and a 1-loss North Carolina up in the top 8 right now in the AP poll. I mean, you got a lot of teams that are just battling out in their own conference. Those are the toughest games for them most of the time.
Well, and Stanford lost, 2 points to Oregon. If they don't lose that 2-point game to Oregon right there, they are probably in the playoff, and somebody's getting left out right now.
And Oregon's sitting in the top 15 right now.
And Stanford, if they wouldn't have lost to Oregon, if they wouldn't have lost, even if they would have lost that game to Oregon by 2, they wouldn't have lost to Northwestern, Northwestern's still up there. They're 10-2.
Yeah. That season.
Then they probably would be, if they only had 1 loss right now, going into the Pac-12 championship game, Pac-12 has been one of the best conferences. I would think that they would be considered very high for a playoff spot. Absolutely. And they still could slide in there if, if Clemson or Alabama gets beat.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
Well, if Clemson or Alabama lose, Stanford's in.
if they win the Pac-12 championship.
Okay, so let's talk about... we'll talk about a game. The Heisman we talked about. You're going to have Henry, Watson, and McCaffrey in there. McCaffrey had 94 rushing yards, and he had 5 kick returns for 109 yards. So pretty mediocre game for him. But when you look at the whole season as a whole, he's still almost 100 yards rushing and over 100 yards kicking.
I know every team's probably knows he's the best player, but you have to worry about Hogan too, because Hogan's not that bad. The quarterback for Stanford. He played a lot better than I thought he would yesterday.
Yeah, and for Alabama, you got to worry about Henry only.
I think Notre Dame must have put a little bit heavier emphasis on McCaffrey than worrying about the passing game.
They shut him down.
Because they shut him down, and that opened up for Hogan to have a couple opportunities that they capitalized on.
Yep. So, upcoming games is next weekend. We got a lot of championship games that we're going to focus on this next week. We'll be back on Tuesday, of course, for our college football playoff poll, but right now we think it's pretty set in stone. We'll talk about it in a second. You got Iowa, Michigan State going to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game.
They're going to be 4 and 5 in some capacity. One will be 4 and one will be 5.
Yep.
Who
do you think? Who do you got? Michigan State or Iowa?
Who am I taking in the game?
Yeah, who are you taking?
I don't want to hurt Jason's feelings because
do it.
I really think it would be a pretty cool story for Iowa this season if they were to make it. Everybody's been hating on them this year. It'd be kind of cool if they did make it and kind of shut everybody up, even though I'm not a big Iowa fan. But I do think that Michigan State will win because they're hot right now. Since they lost to Nebraska, they've just been torching everybody. I know they didn't have a big win over Ohio State, but that was a big game. So
if they play like they did against Penn State this past weekend, they will not only beat Iowa, but they'll beat them by double digits. I'm talking like 17 points. Not that Penn State's a great team, but they were convincingly a whole lot better than Penn State. They kicked the crap out of them.
Penn State's had an okay year.
So I think Michigan State as well. I think they beat Iowa.
That was the first game I got to watch Iowa play this year was against Nebraska, and Nebraska just played so terrible that And it was a close game. I do think that Michigan State wins.
All right, Alabama, Florida. We already talked about our pick. We know Alabama's going to kick the crap out of Florida.
I certainly am going to be cheering pretty hardcore for Florida, but they're terrible. I don't think that they can do it.
I don't even know if I can watch that game because I don't like either team. I dislike both of them equally.
I'm really hoping that Florida comes out to like a 10 or 14-0 start of that game, so I'm like, okay, maybe I will watch part of this game.
Clemson, North Carolina.
I really think it would be cool if North Carolina won. They'd be that Ohio State almost from last year, but they're not going to go in there and beat Clemson by 58 points or whatever. Clemson's going to roll them up by double digits.
Clemson wins, in my mind as well. Temple, Houston. Now, this game doesn't really matter, but it's going to be a good game.
It should be a good game.
It's for the AAC championship.
And that should mean that the winner is the highest ranked non-Power 5, which gets
New Year's Six
Bowl. I think Houston's going to win. After watching Houston this week, they tore up Navy, who I thought was the best non-Power 5 team other than the independent Notre Dame.
I'm taking Temple.
Okay, no, that's good because I want to have something to cheer against you on this, but I don't know though. Every time I took Houston, they kind of sucked, and then I go against them one game and they win by 21 points.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
But what I believe to be probably the best game this upcoming weekend, and probably gonna be coming down to the wire. I hate even saying it, but I think Stanford USC is going to be one hell of a game. USC struggled in the beginning of the year. Once they lost Sarkisian, holy cow, man, they've been awesome. Unstoppable this year.
It almost was like Cody Kessler was getting held back or something, and now he's just like...
There was something their interim coach saw in not only Kessler, but in the whole team, that Sarkisian just maybe he was drunk all the time. I don't know. I'm not trying to joke about that, but maybe he was just drunk and didn't really know what he was doing, because USC, if they didn't have him at the beginning of the year and they had another coach or their interim coach coaching, they could be where Stanford is now.
Or they could be at a point where this would be a much bigger game.
Because they were predicted to be one of the best at the beginning of the season. They were in the top 10.
Well, Cody Kessler was a preseason Heisman.
Yeah. I'm taking Stanford in this game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down. It's going to be no more than a 6 to 7 point victory for either team. It might even come down to a field goal.
Well, dang, you're almost making me want to go against you, but I like Stanford. After watching them, I like McCaffrey a lot. I know he didn't have his best game last night.
Let's see if USC can stop him.
I think that'll be a really good game.
All right, so we got our championship games picked for next week. Those are the big ones. College football playoff poll comes out on Tuesday. I wrote down mine. I know I think you're pretty much in agreement to mine, except for maybe that number 4 spot. So Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, those 3 teams shouldn't matter. Jason, you asked about, does the W matter or does the point spread matter in these games this past weekend? To me, it was the win. Doesn't matter how you win in a rivalry weekend. You have all these games. You're playing up against your rivalry opponent. Doesn't matter what their record is. It's always a big game.
And with 10 teams in the college football committee rankings, top 25, 10 teams lost this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of them played other top 25 teams, but there were 3 or 4 that didn't. And so it was a big rivalry week. Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma will not change.
The number 4 and 5 spot is what we're not really sure about, because you could flip-flop Michigan State and Iowa. You could keep Iowa at number 4, Michigan State at 5. In my mind, they're going to keep an undefeated Iowa. Because of the rivalry game with Nebraska, I think they keep Iowa at number 4. But
makes sense.
I would not be surprised if Michigan State jumped Iowa to number 4 because of their convincing win, and because I think the committee's going to see them as a better team over Iowa.
The reason why I said, because you put Iowa at 4, Michigan State at 5, and I said I could see the committee putting Michigan State at 4 only because they had a bigger win. I know that it was tough games for everybody. Iowa did not have as convincing of a win, which they haven't had that convincing of wins all year, but they're undefeated. They should be in the top 4. I think that they should be number 4, but I think that the committee is going to put Michigan State there for 2 reasons. One, because they're a hotter team right now as far as, point differential and scoring and that type of thing goes. But I also think that might add a little bit more intrigue to that Big Ten championship game, because the winner of that game will get that spot. It's not like you're putting Iowa at number 5 to where if they win the game, they're not going to jump in there. Because the winner of that game will jump into that spot. But I think that the committee's just gonna. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know. It'll be fun.
So we got Ohio State at 6, Stanford at 7, North Carolina at 8. North Carolina finally getting some love.
Finally getting into the top 10.
But that's because they have a chance to get in the playoff. If
I don't know.
Clemson,
I don't even know if they'll be in the top. I don't even know if they'll be that high. They might. They should be, but
if they beat Clemson, they win. Agreed?
If
They're in.
If they beat Clemson, they win. Agreed. Yeah,
they're in.
So they beat them.
They're in.
They're in.
What do you think?
If they beat Clemson,
Then you gotta put them in.
I don't think so. I think what would happen what would happen is Alabama would go up to number 1, Oklahoma would go up to number 2, the winner of Michigan State, Iowa would go to number 3, and Stanford would go to number 4.
If Stanford
in my opinion,
USC.
If Stanford were to beat USC, in my opinion, not on. I mean, looking at their record and everything, yeah. Or if it was up to the computers back in the day, then yeah, they probably would. But I don't know. That's a tough question right there. That's a toughie. I don't know, man. Maybe Clemson and Alabama can both lose, and then
that's wishful thinking.
Stanford and North Carolina can both jump in there, but not Ohio State.
Not gonna happen. But we'll see.
Oh.
All right. That's all I got for today. You got anything else for today?
I don't think so. I mean,
all right.
We'll chat on Tuesday after the rankings come out. That'll be fun.
Absolutely, we will. If you guys got anything else for us, let us know. Once again, we're just 2 average guys with our opinions. We'll be back on Tuesday night with some more opinions on the playoff poll. Thanks for joining in.
See you Tuesday.
Even if it means I'm selling my soul just to be done, disputing you can't do whatever I gotta do just to win, cause I got the